Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex Stephenson and welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. The Mortarpod is a weekly video podcast where I present to you a custom-made magic set every week based on movies, TV shows, games, and suggestions from you guys. So this has been a lot of fun. I've been doing it for a few months now, and a lot of the sets have, they've been a lot of fun to make, and I've gotten some cool suggestions from other people about how to improve them or how to change them. So this week, one of my favorite movies of all time, The Big Lebowski. Now, if you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, you probably should. It just got accepted, I believe, into the National Film Register. I think that's what it's called. But it's like where all of the greatest movies from the past, they pick particular ones and then add it to this. So The Big Lebowski was picked, which I would think would indicate it's a great movie, and I would have to agree. I do love The Big Lebowski. It's very strange. It's one of those movies I recommend giving it multiple viewings, because the first time you see it, it's almost like the Napoleon Dynamite issue, where the first time you see Napoleon Dynamite, your expectations might be a little bit higher, so you're like, wait, what's going on here? But The Big Lebowski is the same sort of deal. The repeat views are where you really start to appreciate all the little subtle nuances of The Big Lebowski. But let's get into the cards. All right, we've got the Wandering Stranger. So the Wandering Stranger, played by Sam Elliott, is he's the narrator of the story. He doesn't actually have too many lines, but he interacts with the main character, Jeff Bridges' character, the Dude, a few times. So since the Wandering Stranger is the narrator, I sort of wanted to evoke that he's presenting the story to you in his ability. So the Wandering Stranger is a green and a white for a 3/2 legendary human creature. When the Wandering Stranger enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a legendary creature card and reveal it. If you do, shuffle your library, then put the card on top of it. So kind of like a worldly tutor for Legends only, plus a creature body. Also kind of like Congregation at Dawn a little bit, but yes, essentially you're supposed to be, if you're flavorfully playing this card, you're supposed to be searching up the Dude. Who is the next card? So the Dude, played by Jeff Bridges, the main protagonist of The Big Lebowski. And he's sort of, he's a middle-aged hippie. He's just carefree. The Dude abides is something he says, so I definitely wanted him to have an ability called Abide. So the Dude is 2 green and a white for a 2/4 mythic legendary human creature. He has Abide, so at the beginning of your upkeep, if this creature didn't deal combat damage since your last turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it into your hand. And then he has 0, remove the Dude from combat, activate this ability only once each turn. And then his flavor text is, yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. So very hippie in a lot of his dialogue in the movie. But Jeff Bridges just did such a fantastic job as this aged hippie. So yeah, you can remove him from combat at will for free, which is nice. And the Abide ability gives you some card advantage, which is always nice when card advantage pops up in green. Moving on, we have Donnie Karabatsos, played by Steve Buscemi. And Donnie's on the Dude's bowling team, and he's kind of a quiet guy. He's constantly being told to shut the F up by Walter Sobchak, who's the next card. But let's go over Donnie. So Donnie's 1 and 2 white for a 2/2 mythic human creature. He has the other mechanic from the set called Bowling. So Bowling is tap target untapped creature, then flip a coin. If you win the flip, put a strike counter on this creature. And when Donnie Karabatsos dies, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control for each strike counter on Donnie Karabatsos. So he can tap dudes down, And then you have a 50-50 shot of putting a strike counter on him every time you tap a creature down. And then when he dies, he can pump all your other guys. So I like him. His put up his +1/+1 counter ability on each creature you control. That was based on a card from, I believe it was Morningtide. That was part of the Kithkin tribe. Its name escapes me now, but it was also, I believe, a 3-mana, either 1/1 or 2/2 that got +1/+1 counters when you played it, based on how many Kithkin you controlled. And then I think it gave you Kithkin when it died. So this, I wanted it just to be pumps all your creatures huge if Donnie was successfully slamming those strikes. Next we have Walter Sobchak. This is played by John Goodman. And I think Walter might be my favorite character from the movie just because he's so crazy. And the lines he has in the movie are just so funny. So Walter Sobchak is 2 red and a white for a 3/4 mythic legendary human. He also has bowling, and then his other ability is whenever a creature you control with a strike counter on it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+0 for each strike counter on it and gains first strike until end of turn. So definitely more big rewards for getting those strike counters on them. And I wanted it to be like the strike counters all interact with each other sort of thing. So it's cool that Walter helps interact with Donnie, who also has bowling. Also good at throwing strikes. People on the Reddit community kind of showed, communicated to me that randomization in a mechanic is probably something Wizards wouldn't do because they don't like a lot of randomness. But the reason I wanted it is when you go bowling, it feels like there's a lot of randomness to it, because have you ever thrown the bowling ball and you feel like it's in the same exact spot as the one you just threw that hit a strike, and this one doesn't hit a strike? So it almost feels like there's, to me, a random element to bowling, and I wanted to have the mechanics sort of evoke that feeling. Okay, next we have Over the Line. This is one of the early scenes in the movie, and they're in a league game in bowling, and Walter gets very upset at a guy named Smokey, who's on the other team who they're bowling against. He claims that he's put his foot over the line, and of course Walter takes it to the next level. He's an old Vietnam vet. Takes it to the next level and pulls his gun out and threatens to kill Smokey if he doesn't mark it 0 for going over the line. So first of many incidents that indicates to you right away that Walter is crazy. So Over the Line is 1 red sorcery. It's a common. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains Intimidate until end of turn. And then the flavor text is, Smokey, my friend, you're entering a world of pain. You mark that frame 8, you're entering a world of pain. This is when he pulls the gun out. So I just sort of based this one on Distortion Strike from Blue, which not only has rebound, so you get to use it twice, but straight up makes the creature unblockable. So I felt like red could get a slightly less powerful version of that, and there wouldn't be any issues, I don't think. Next we have Jesus Quintana, and this is played by John Turturro. And Jesus is very funny. I mean, I think anybody else would pronounce their name Jesus, I think, especially since he's, I believe, playing a Latin or a, Mexican, Spanish-speaking individual. But no, he goes by Jesus. And Jesus Quintana is a blue and 2 black for a 3/3 mythic legendary human. He also has bowling, and creatures you control with strike counters on them get +1/+0 and have Intimidate. So Jesus is a very good bowler, very intimidating to both the dude and Walter and Donnie. And even though the movie never lets you see the actual bowling match between their two teams, they are supposed to be playing maybe right after the movie goes or something like that. But no, they never show the final showdown between Jesus and his partner and the dude and Walter. But yeah, Jesus is hilarious. You can see in the picture him licking his bowling ball. So Jesus Quintana is a crazy, crazy person. He also was like a pedophile, is sort of his backstory. He had to go door to door when he first moved around and telling everybody he was a pedophile. So because Walter and the dude basically need to break Jesus down so he's not so intimidating to him. Uh, Next, we have Brant the Pretentious, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's actually a lot of stars in this movie. It's really cool. Brant the Pretentious is 1 blue for a 1/1 legendary human creature. He plays as the Big Lebowski's assistant, and the Big Lebowski's sort of the main antagonist of the movie. So Brant the Pretentious, 1 mana 1/1. He also has 1 and tap. Target creature an opponent controls attacks this turn if able. That creature gets -1/-0 until end of turn. So pretty powerful effect, but he's he's a legend. He's a rare. I feel like it's not overly powerful. He's also very cheap. Next we have the Big Lebowski himself. You meet him kind of early on because the dude gets his rug peed on, and because the people who peed on his rug were actually looking for this Lebowski. The dude's name is also Lebowski, but they're looking for the Big Lebowski. So the dude figures, why not go to the Lebowski they were looking for and get his rug replaced from him? So the Big Lebowski is a blue and a black. He's an 0/2 mythic legendary human. He's wheelchair bound, so I felt like he probably wouldn't have any power. His ability is tap, exile a card in your hand face down. Target opponent chooses land or non-land. Reveal the exiled card. If it's the same as your opponent's choice, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it into your hand, then draw a card. So basically, you choose a card in your hand, so you have to have at least 1 card. Your opponent has to not know what that card is, if it's just 1 card. And then they take a 50-50 shot of guessing what card it is that you exiled. And if they guessed correctly, you still get the card back, but they get the information on what the card is. And if they guessed incorrectly, you get to keep the card and you get to draw another card. So the Big Lebowski gives you basically a 50-50 shot at best of drawing an extra card each turn, which is definitely powerful. Like I said, there's some instances you can't use it. And the fact that he's legendary and a mythic, I feel like, I don't think it's an overpowered ability. Some people might disagree. I don't think it would be overpowered as a legendary mythic. I don't think he's overpowered, since it's only a 50-50 shot of drawing the extra card each turn. But yeah, it's indeed. I mean, if you're hitting that, if you hit him a couple times with extra cards, that can be pretty brutal. But as far as overpowered goes, I don't think so. Multicolor, 0/2, mythic, legendary. I think there's enough factors at stake where he's probably just powerful but not overpowered. Okay, next we have Bunny Lebowski, the trophy wife of the Big Lebowski. And Bunny Lebowski played by Tara Reid. And she's a nymphomaniac who, borrows money from the porn industry. One of the local pornographers, Jackie Treehorn, she got in a bad way with him, taking some of his money. So Bunny Lebowski strikes me as someone who really doesn't care about many people at all besides herself. Very self-absorbed and very selfish, and just basically uses people for money and sex. So not a very nice person. Bunny Lebowski is 2 red for a 2/2 legendary human creature. She's a rare, and she has 2 colorless. Bunny Lebowski deals 1 damage to target player unless that player pays 1. Any player may activate this ability. And then her flavor text is, "You're not blowing." When you first meet her, she's a stranger to the dude, and she asks the dude to blow on her toes and offers to do some illicit activity with him for copious amounts of money. And she's funny. She did a great job as playing, the scuzzy, gross wife of trophy wife. So I wanted her ability. Anybody, if you're throwing mana at her, she'll deal damage to whoever you want unless they pay 1. So basically, if you're paying her off, she won't deal damage to you, is kind of how I wanted her to come across. Next, we have Rug That Ties the Room Together. This is the rug that was soiled in the movie, and it was one of the dude's possessions that in his house that he really loved to lay on and listen to bowling sounds while laying on. So Rug That Ties the Room Together is 2 colorless artifact. It's an uncommon, and it has 2 colorless tap, flip a coin. If you win the flip, exchange control of Rug That Ties the Room Together and target artifact and opponent controls. So there's been some similar abilities to this, and I like it having a cheap cost because of the flip a coin aspect of it. So you have a 50-50 shot to take one of your opponent's artifacts at instant speed, of course. And since it's only a 50-50 shot, I like that. If you're hot flipping those coins, then maybe you can keep their artifact longer than your opponent can keep a rug that ties the room together, because I assume your opponent's going to try and steal back the artifact you've taken from them. Next we have White Russian. So this is the dude's drink of choice throughout the movie. He often just orders White Russians wherever he can get them. And I made White Russian 1 white instant. It's a common. And then it's a choose one. So you gain 3 life, and target attacking or blocking creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So in a pinch, gain some life if maybe your opponent's overextending to kill you, or it's also a little mediocre combat trick. So for a common, it's always nice to have choices on a common. Next we have Larry Sellers, who is a kid who ends up stealing the dude's car with some important relevant documents in it that it's kind of a convoluted story, to tell you the truth, but basically Larry Sellers steals the dude's car and angers him greatly, and they end up finding out who stole it because Larry leaves his homework in the car, which is kind of funny too. But Larry Sellers is 2 in a red for a 1/2 rare legendary human creature. When he enters the battlefield, gain control of target artifact and opponent controls. And if you do, untap that artifact. It gains haste until end of turn. And then you put an anger counter on target creature that opponent controls. Whenever a creature with an anger counter on it attacks you, lose control of that artifact. And then the flavor text is, "You see what happens, Larry?" And that's Walter just getting really mad at Larry Sellers. There's a lot of swearing in the Big Lebowski, and I definitely wanted to minimize bringing that into Magic, since Magic's kind of always been clean and wholesome when it comes to language. So I wanted to sort of uphold that, but it was definitely difficult because there's a lot of swearing in the Big Lebowski. Okay, moving on. We've got Maud Lebowski. So this is the Big Lebowski's daughter, and she's kind of a pretentious, I don't know, she's almost like a early hipster, to tell you the truth. But Maud Lebowski is 2 blue and a white for a 1/3 legendary human creature. She's a mythic, and she has 2 blue, tap, put a colorless artifact token named Avant-Garde Art onto the battlefield with white, sacrifice this artifact, put a confusion counter on target creature, and then her other static ability is creatures with confusion counters on them can't attack or block. So Maud is an avant-garde artist, and her art is just very strange. Not only what it looks like, but how she creates it is very unusual. Very elaborate process to creating her art, and it's just very funny. And I definitely wanted it, because just watching her do it is very confusing, so I wanted her art to confuse the people who receive it, because they don't even know what to say about it. It's so strange. But she's like an ardent feminist who just basically has a bunch of, high class, high society sort of people. Very pretentious, very condescending, but very funny also. Okay, next we have Gruesome Warning. So Bunny Lebowski ends up allegedly being kidnapped, and that's why the dude is actually hired by the Big Lebowski to go find her. So Gruesome Warning, at one point, the Big Lebowski and Brant receive a toe in the mail, which is believed to be Bunny's. So Gruesome Warning is 2 black sorcery, uncommon. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and then until your next turn, creatures your opponents control get -1/-0. So I kind of like the until your next turn ability, and the new Sorin was the one that was one of the first times I think I'd seen that. So basically, yeah, the -1/-1 counter is cutting the person's toe off, and then until your next turn, creatures your opponents control get -1/-0 is the you're basically sapping all the people on that team, because it's like, oh no, you cut off the toe of one of our allies. So I was happy with how that one turned out. Okay, next we have Jackie Treehorn, And Jackie Treehorn is a local pornographer, the one that Bunny owes money to. So you get to meet him, and he's kind of a sketchy individual, but mostly just a loan shark and pornographer. So I definitely took the reins on the loan shark aspect of his personality and put that on the magic card. So Jackie Treehorn is a black and a green for a 1/2 rare legendary human creature. He has tap. Target player adds 1 mana of any color to his or her mana pool. If an opponent adds mana this way, that player loses 2 life at the beginning of the next end step unless he or she pays 2 before that end step. So I wanted something unusual with Jackie. Since he's a loan shark, you can give mana to your opponents, but they have to pay you back with twice as much mana or they lose 2 life. So I also like that Jackie you can just add it for yourself and you don't have to have that disadvantage of it. So Jackie, I was actually really happy with how he turned out. He ramps for you any color you want, or he can make your opponent lose life if they tap out, basically. So yeah, I was happy with his design. Next we have Bathtub Marmot. This is a pretty funny scene in the movie. So Bunny Lebowski's friends with some nihilists, some German nihilists, and they are definitely suspected of kidnapping Bunny as well. So they basically enter the dude's residence with this marmot and put it in put it in the dude's bathtub while he's taking a nice bath. So who would like that? So it freaks him out a lot. So I wanted the bathtub marmot to be in the set as well. So bathtub marmot, 1 colorless and a black for a 1/1 rat creature. It's an uncommon. It has intimidate, and whenever bathtub marmot attacks, defending player loses 1 life. So I was also happy with this design. It's close to the same power level as the Highborn Ghoul, which was a 2 black 2/1 intimidator. So this is a 1 and a black 1/1 intimidator, but essentially almost has 2 power since it makes your opponent lose 1 life when it attacks. But I'm happy with Bathtub Marmot too. I think that'd be a fun card to play in Limited. And finally we have Nihilistic Assault. So instead of making individual cards for each of the 3 Nihilists, only the main Nihilist, Uli, is the only one that actually has a significant amount of dialogue in the movie. What's funny is one of the Nihilists is played by Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, so I always thought that was kind of funny. But Nihilistic Assault is 3 colorless, a red and a green. It's a sorcery, it's an uncommon. And put up to 3 creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. Those creatures gain haste until end of turn. And, it's potentially a powerful ability. The problem with Nihilistic Assault, I think, which prevents it from being overpowered, is if you have 3 creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less in your hand, you've probably already played a few of them, is the way I see it. I don't know why you would hold them back so you could play Nihilistic Assault and get them out. That being said, there's certainly some powerful 3-drop creatures like Woolly Thoktar, or basically any of the ones from Shards of Alara, any of the 3-color, I believe it's an uncommon cycle, any of that 3-color uncommon cycle, those would be pretty bonkers to get 3 of those out in 1 turn. So Nihilistic Assault's one of those cards that has potentially a high upside, but it's pretty hand dependent, and it costs you, at most 4 cards to get that huge advantage. So I still like it. There's a chance I could have made it rare. Perhaps it's strong enough to do that, but I felt like it was okay as an uncommon. Okay, well, that's all the cards from this custom set this week. I hope you were digging all of the Holiday Cube content. We're going to be back on Cons of Tarkir shortly. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Visit SeemsGoodMagic.com, and we'll see you next week.